Welcome back to the channel, friends. Today, we're starting a brand new journey together with a classic that has changed millions of lives around the world, The Magic of Thinking Big by David J. Schwartz. This isn't just another motivational book, it's a guide to transforming the way we think, and through that, transforming the results we get in our lives. Now, if you've ever felt like you're capable of more but something is holding you back, this book is for you. If you've ever wondered why some people with ordinary backgrounds achieve extraordinary success, while others stay stuck, this book gives us the answers. My goal here isn't just to summarize each chapter for you, but to bring it to life in a way that you can actually use. Think of this series as a mix of audiobook-style storytelling and practical coaching you can apply right away. So sit back, relax, and let's dive into Chapter 1 of The Magic of Thinking Big. By the end of today's session, you'll see why your beliefs about yourself shape your entire future, and why learning to think bigger could be the single most powerful shift you ever make. People often assume that success belongs only to a select few, those with exceptional talent, money, education, or powerful connections. But this is not true. The greatest determinant of success is not genius-level intelligence or luck. It's mindset. In the opening of The Magic of Thinking Big, David J. Schwartz makes a simple yet profound case: the size of your thinking determines the size of your success. Most people limit themselves not because of what they actually lack, but because of what they believe they lack. They play life small, when in fact, by learning to think bigger, they could play much larger and reap far greater rewards. Schwartz reminds us that history is filled with ordinary individuals who achieved extraordinary things, not because they were inherently special, but because they chose to think differently. Think about it: the people who design skyscrapers, who create businesses that span continents, who influence millions, all began with the same basic building blocks as everyone else. Their brains are not physically larger than yours or mine. Their abilities weren't predestined. Instead, what separated them was their willingness to believe in something bigger, to act with confidence, and to refuse to let limiting beliefs define them. The author gives us a simple truth: belief is the foundation of success. When you believe you can achieve something, your mind begins to work in your favor. It seeks solutions, it finds opportunities, and it attracts the right resources. On the other hand, disbelief is the destroyer of dreams. When you doubt yourself, when you tell yourself that you can't, your mind immediately shuts down. It doesn't look for possibilities. Instead, it supplies excuses and obstacles. If you say, "I can't do this," your brain agrees and stops trying. If you say, "I can do this," your brain also agrees, but now it starts to work on how. This is why Schwartz insists that belief is not just a vague concept, it's a practical tool. Your belief system directly affects your actions, and your actions create results. Imagine two people given the same task: one believes they can succeed, the other doubts themselves. The believer will approach the task with energy, enthusiasm, and persistence. They'll keep searching for answers until they find one. The doubter will hesitate, second guess, and eventually give up at the first obstacle. In the end, the believer is more likely to succeed, not because they are smarter or luckier, but because their mindset compelled them to act differently. The author also exposes the trap of small thinking. People who think small convince themselves they are protecting themselves from failure, but in reality, they are guaranteeing mediocrity. They tell themselves, "I'll just stick with what's safe," or "I'll settle for less." Over time, these thoughts shrink their world. They don't pursue opportunities, they don't take risks, and they don't allow themselves to grow. By thinking small, they are unconsciously setting limits on what they can achieve. But big thinkers live differently. They set bold goals, and because of those goals, they find ways to achieve them. To illustrate this, Schwartz gives practical examples. Imagine two salespeople. One believes he can make only modest sales, so he sets low targets. Another believes he can reach the top of his field, so he sets higher targets and works toward them. Who do you think sells more? The one who thought bigger, because his belief shaped his effort. In every field, from business to sports to personal development, the pattern is the same. Big thinkers achieve more simply because they aim higher and act accordingly. Another important lesson in this first chapter is the link between confidence and action. Schwartz points out that self-confidence isn't something you're born with, it's something you build. Confidence comes from action, and the more you act, the more confident you become. Think of someone learning to drive. At first, they are nervous, unsure of themselves. But with each drive, their confidence grows until eventually driving becomes second nature. Success works the same way. Every time you act, even if imperfectly, you build confidence. Every time you avoid action out of fear, your confidence weakens. So, Schwartz teaches us a powerful technique: act as if you already believe. Even if you feel unsure, step forward and behave with confidence. Over time, the actions reinforce the belief. Many people wait until they feel confident before acting, but the truth is, confidence comes after action, not before it. The secret is to start anyway, even if you're afraid. The chapter also dismantles the myth that only lucky people succeed. Luck, Schwartz argues, is largely a byproduct of mindset and persistence. The people we call lucky are often those who were prepared to take action when opportunity appeared. They had already been thinking big, planning big, and working big, so when the chance came, they seized it. Those who think small often miss opportunities, because they don't even see them as possibilities. In other words, luck favors the prepared mind, and preparation begins with thinking big. Schwartz encourages readers to constantly feed their minds with belief and positivity. Just as your body becomes what you feed it, your mind becomes what you feed it. If you feed it doubt, negativity, and excuses, it weakens. If you feed it belief, optimism, and vision, it strengthens. This is why big thinkers guard their mental diet. They avoid the "I can't" conversations. They distance themselves from chronic complainers and excuse makers. Instead, they surround themselves with people and information that fuel growth and belief. This idea connects to another practical point: belief is contagious. The way you think not only affects your life but also influences the people around you. When you think big and carry yourself with confidence, others respond to that energy. They become more willing to trust you, to work with you, to follow your leadership. On the other hand, if you radiate doubt and fear, people pick up on it. They become hesitant, less inspired, and less willing to engage. Leaders who achieve greatness do so by projecting belief, not arrogance, but a deep conviction in what they are doing. The opening of the magic of thinking big isn't just motivational, it's instructional. Schwartz is telling us that success begins with a choice. You can choose to think small and live small, or you can choose to think big and open doors to a much larger life. And this choice begins not in your circumstances, but in your mind. To make it practical, he suggests that we start replacing disbelief with belief in everyday situations. If you're about to make a presentation, instead of saying, "I hope I don't mess this up," tell yourself, "I'm prepared, I will do well." If you're applying for a new job, instead of thinking, "There's no way they'll hire me," say, "I have value to offer, and I can succeed here." If you're starting a business, don't say, "I'll probably fail," say, "I will make this work." Each of these shifts changes your mindset, and over time, your mindset changes your life. By the time, the message is clear: believe in yourself and your ability to succeed. Train your mind to think big, because your mind is the steering wheel of your life. Whatever direction you point it, that's where you will go. If you believe you're destined for smallness, you'll remain there. If you believe you're capable of greatness, you'll begin the journey to achieve it. Now let's step into Chapter 2 of The Magic of Thinking Big. This chapter is about something so simple, yet so powerful, that most people overlook it: belief. David Schwartz says plainly, believe you can succeed, and you will. Think about this for a moment: every bridge, every skyscraper, every thriving business, every career breakthrough, it all started with a single person saying, "I believe this is possible." Without belief, there's no action. Without belief, there's no persistence. And without belief, there's no success. Schwartz compares belief to a starter engine. Just like you can't move a car without turning the ignition, you can't move toward success without first turning on belief. If you doubt yourself, you stall before you even begin. But if you believe, your mind starts to churn out energy, ideas, and courage. Let's make this real with a few examples. Light bulb example 1, Thomas Edison. Edison believed the electric light bulb was possible even after thousands of failed attempts. Many people around him thought he was wasting his life. But Edison's belief created persistence. He once said, "I have not failed. I've just found 10,000 ways that won't work." Without belief, he would have quit after 100 tries, maybe even 10. But because he believed, the world got electric light. Light bulb example 2, J.K. Rowling. Before she was the world-famous author of Harry Potter, Rowling was a single mother, broke, struggling to get by. She faced multiple rejections from publishers who told her that her book wouldn't sell. Imagine if she had believed them. Instead, she believed in her story. She believed she had something valuable to share. That belief carried her through rejection after rejection until one publisher finally said yes. Today, she's one of the best-selling authors in history. Light bulb example 3, business and real estate. Closer to everyday life, think about someone in business or real estate. Picture two new realtors starting out. One says, "This is too competitive. I'll never be as good as the experienced agents. I'm not cut out for this." That belief, or lack of belief, keeps them from making calls, from networking, from investing energy. They fail before they even start. The other realtor says, "I know it's competitive, but I believe I can carve out my space. I believe I can serve people with honesty and hustle." That belief fuels phone calls, open houses, social media marketing. Eventually, that belief creates momentum, clients, and success. Now, Schwartz also warns us about excusitis, the failure disease. He highlights 3 common excuses that kill belief. Health excuses. People say, "I'd love to achieve more, but my health isn't good enough. I get tired easily." Yet, history is full of people who succeeded despite massive health challenges. Franklin D. Roosevelt, for example, led America through the Great Depression and World War II, all while battling polio and being unable to walk unaided. His belief, not his body, carried him. Intelligence excuses. People tell themselves, "I'm not smart enough. I didn't go to the best school." But IQ isn't the secret to success. Henry Ford, who revolutionized the automobile industry, had little formal education. What he had was belief in his ability to organize, to learn, and to persevere. That belief mattered far more than a degree. Age excuses. People often say, "I'm too young to be taken seriously," or, "I'm too old to start fresh." Yet, Colonel Sanders started KFC in his 60s. Mark Zuckerberg built Facebook at 19. Belief has no age limit. The people who succeed are those who tell themselves, "Now is the right time, and I can do it." Schwartz drives this point home. When you argue for your limitations, you get to keep them. If you insist on saying, "I can't," your mind will happily serve up reasons why you can't. But if you say, "I can," your mind shifts into problem-solving mode. So how do we build this belief practically? Schwartz gives us a few techniques. Remind yourself you are better than you think you are. Too many people underestimate their abilities. The truth is, you have untapped strength, creativity, and resilience waiting to be used. Practice speaking and acting with confidence. Walk a little taller. Shake hands firmly. Speak like you expect to be heard. These physical actions reinforce your mental belief. Associate with people who build belief. If you spend time around doubters, complainers, and negative voices, your belief shrinks. But if you surround yourself with believers, doers, and encouragers, your own belief multiplies. Here's a simple real-world exercise. Next time you face a challenge, pause and ask yourself, if I absolutely knew I could not fail, what would I do? That thought experiment strips away doubt. Then, act as if that belief were true. You'll be surprised how much further you go. Schwartz also reminds us that belief is contagious. Think of leaders like Martin Luther King Jr. or Steve Jobs. People followed them not just because of their intelligence or skill, but because of their belief. They believed so strongly in their vision that others couldn't help but believe too. When you believe in yourself, others start to invest their trust in you as well. The lesson is crystal clear: success doesn't begin with money, or luck, or even connections. It begins with belief. Believe in yourself, and your mind will find ways to win. Doubt yourself, and your mind will find ways to quit. So, here's the takeaway from this chapter: feed your mind with belief every single day. Tell yourself, I am capable. I have what it takes. I will figure it out. Because the truth is, doubt creates excuses, while belief creates action. And action, over time, creates success. If you think success is possible for you, it is. But if you believe it isn't, you've already closed the door. So choose wisely. Believe big, and your future will grow big. Now let's step into Chapter 2 of The Magic of Thinking Big. This chapter is about something so simple, yet so powerful, that most people overlook it: belief. David Schwartz says plainly, believe you can succeed, and you will. Think about this for a moment: every bridge, every skyscraper, every thriving business, every career breakthrough, it all started with a single person saying, I believe this is possible. Without belief, there's no action. Without belief, there's no persistence. And without belief, there's no success. Schwartz compares belief to a starter engine. Just like you can't move a car without turning the ignition, you can't move toward success without first turning on belief. If you doubt yourself, you stall before you even begin. But if you believe, your mind starts to churn out energy, ideas, and courage. Let's make this real with a few examples. Light bulb example 1, Thomas Edison. Edison believed the electric light bulb was possible even after thousands of failed attempts. Many people around him thought he was wasting his life. But Edison's belief created persistence. He once said, I have not failed. I've just found 10,000 ways that won't work. Without belief, he would have quit after 100 tries, maybe even 10. But because he believed, the world got electric light. Light bulb example 2, J.K. Rowling. Before she was the world-famous author of Harry Potter, Rowling was a single mother, broke, struggling to get by. She faced multiple rejections from publishers who told her that her book wouldn't sell. Imagine if she had believed them. Instead, she believed in her story. She believed she had something valuable to share. That belief carried her through rejection after rejection until one publisher finally said yes. Today, she's one of the best-selling authors in history. Light bulb example 3, business and real estate. Closer to everyday life, think about someone in business or real estate. Picture two new realtors starting out. One says, this is too competitive. I'll never be as good as the experienced agents. I'm not cut out for this. That belief, or lack of belief, keeps them from making calls, from networking, from investing energy. They fail before they even start. The other realtor says, I know it's competitive, but I believe I can carve out my space. I believe I can serve people with honesty and hustle. That belief fuels phone calls, open houses, social media marketing. Eventually, that belief creates momentum, clients, and success. Now, Schwartz also warns us about Excusitis, the failure disease. He highlights 3 common excuses that kill belief. Health excuses. People say, I'd love to achieve more, but my health isn't good enough. I get tired easily. Yet, history is full of people who succeeded despite massive health challenges. Franklin D. Roosevelt, for example, led America through the Great Depression and World War II, all while battling polio and being unable to walk unaided. His belief, not his body, carried him. Intelligence excuses. People tell themselves, I'm not smart enough. I didn't go to the best school. But IQ isn't the secret to success. Henry Ford, who revolutionized the automobile industry, had little formal education. What he had was belief in his ability to organize, to learn, and to persevere. That belief mattered far more than a degree. Age excuses. People often say, I'm too young to be taken seriously, or, I'm too old to start fresh. Yet, Colonel Sanders started KFC in his 60s. Mark Zuckerberg built Facebook at 19. Belief has no age limit. The people who succeed are those who tell themselves, now is the right time, and I can do it. Schwartz drives this point home. When you argue for your limitations, you get to keep them. If you insist on saying, I can't, your mind will happily serve up reasons why you can't. But if you say, I can, your mind shifts into problem-solving mode. So how do we build this belief practically? Schwartz gives us a few techniques. Remind yourself you are better than you think you are. Too many people underestimate their abilities. The truth is, you have untapped strength, creativity, and resilience waiting to be used. Practice speaking and acting with confidence. Walk a little taller. Shake hands firmly. Speak like you expect to be heard. These physical actions reinforce your mental belief. Associate with people who build belief. If you spend time around doubters, complainers, and negative voices, your belief shrinks. But if you surround yourself with believers, doers, and encouragers, your own belief multiplies. Here's a simple real-world exercise. Next time you face a challenge, pause and ask yourself, if I absolutely knew I could not fail, what would I do? That thought experiment strips away doubt. Then, act as if that belief were true. You'll be surprised how much further you go. Schwartz also reminds us that belief is contagious. Think of leaders like Martin Luther King Jr. or Steve Jobs. People followed them not just because of their intelligence or skill, but because of their belief. They believed so strongly in their vision that others couldn't help but believe too. When you believe in yourself, others start to invest their trust in you as well. The lesson is crystal clear: success doesn't begin with money, or luck, or even connections. It begins with belief. Believe in yourself, and your mind will find ways to win. Doubt yourself, and your mind will find ways to quit. So, here's the takeaway from this chapter: feed your mind with belief every single day. Tell yourself, I am capable. I have what it takes. I will figure it out. Because the truth is, doubt creates excuses, while belief creates action. And action, over time, creates success. If you think success is possible for you, it is. But if you believe it isn't, you've already closed the door. So choose wisely. Believe big, and your future will grow big. One of the central truths of this book is that how you think shapes what you achieve. In this chapter, David Schwartz tells us that success requires us to think bigger, not in terms of arrogance or ego, but in terms of vision, possibility, and belief in what can be done. He makes it clear, small thinking creates small results, and big thinking opens doors that most people don't even see. Let's pause for a second. Imagine 2 people starting the same business at the same time. One thinks, if I can just survive, maybe make enough to pay my bills, I'll be okay. The other thinks, I want to build a business that dominates the market, that creates jobs, that becomes a household name. Who do you think will act differently? Who will take bolder risks, push harder, dream bigger, and as a result, get bigger results? The difference isn't talent. It's the size of their thinking. Schwartz reminds us that the world doesn't care whether your goals are small or big. The energy required to dream small is about the same as dreaming big, but the payoff is completely different. Small thinking keeps you stuck in average. Big thinking pulls you into extraordinary. Take the story of Howard Schultz, the man who built Starbucks. In the beginning, he didn't just think about opening one coffee shop. He envisioned creating a global brand where coffee became an experience, not just a drink. That's big thinking. People laughed at him, said Americans would never pay $5 for a cup of coffee. But Schultz wasn't thinking about cups, he was thinking about culture, community, lifestyle. Today, Starbucks is everywhere, and his vision reshaped how the world experiences coffee. So how do we think big in our own lives? Schwartz says it starts with the words we use. Words shape thought, and thought shapes action. If you say, "That's impossible," your brain shuts down. If you say, "Let's figure out how," your brain starts looking for solutions. For example, think of two managers facing a tough challenge. One says, "We'll never meet this deadline." The other says, "It's tough, but let's find a way." Which team do you think performs better? Words don't just describe reality, they create it. Another habit of big thinkers is focusing on possibilities, not limitations. Most people, when faced with a challenge, immediately list the reasons why it won't work. Big thinkers do the opposite. They ask, what are the reasons it could work? What if it does succeed? What if this risk pays off? This mental shift doesn't guarantee success, but it dramatically increases the chances. Schwartz tells us to avoid what he calls petty thinkers. These are people stuck in negativity, gossip, jealousy, and small-minded arguments. Petty thinkers waste time talking about other people's faults. Big thinkers talk about ideas, goals, opportunities. Think about your own circle. If you're around people constantly complaining or criticizing, your own vision shrinks. But if you're surrounded by people who talk about building, creating, and growing, your mind expands. Let me give you a very relatable example. In real estate, one agent might say, "The market is slow, there are too many competitors, clients aren't buying, interest rates are too high." That's small thinking. Another agent might say, "Yes, the market is shifting, but that means there are investors looking for deals, families looking to upgrade, and opportunities to specialize in niches others are ignoring." That's big thinking. Which agent is more likely to thrive? The one who thinks big. Schwartz also emphasizes that big thinking requires big self-belief. You cannot expect others to believe in your ideas if you don't believe in them yourself. People sense the size of your thinking. If you project confidence and vision, people are drawn to you. If you project doubt and smallness, people step back. This makes me think of Elon Musk again. When he talks about colonizing Mars, many people roll their eyes. But notice something, his sheer belief and big vision inspire thousands of engineers, investors, and scientists to rally behind him. Whether he gets to Mars in his lifetime or not, his big thinking pulls entire industries forward. Another lesson from this chapter is to stretch your thinking about people. Don't see others as obstacles, see them as assets. Big thinkers don't belittle others to make themselves feel bigger. They lift others, respect others, and as a result, they attract stronger allies. For instance, in corporate life, the leaders who grow the most aren't the ones who hoard power. They're the ones who delegate, empower their teams, and help others grow. Schwartz gives a practical technique: look at situations not just as they are, but as they could be. For example, instead of seeing a small piece of land as a vacant lot, see it as a shopping plaza, a residential tower, or a thriving community space. Instead of seeing one client as a single deal, See them as the door to 5 referrals. Training your mind to see the potential, not just the present, is the essence of big thinking. Think of Walt Disney. When he looked at a swampy piece of land in Florida, he didn't see mud and mosquitoes. He saw Disney World, a place that would attract millions of visitors every year. That's why today, long after his death, his vision continues to impact the world. He thought big, bigger than anyone around him, and the result is a legacy that has lasted generations. Another important point is to stop letting fear of being wrong keep you small. Small thinkers are obsessed with not making mistakes. Big thinkers understand that mistakes are part of the process. They'd rather try something bold and fail than do nothing and stay safe. Think of Thomas Edison. He didn't see 10,000 failed experiments as failures. He saw them as steps toward success. That's the mindset of a big thinker. Let's make this more personal. What does big thinking look like for you? It could mean aiming for a higher income goal instead of settling for average. It could mean writing the book you've always wanted instead of just talking about it. It could mean starting a business, expanding your influence, or making an impact in your community. The details vary, but the principle is the same: think bigger than your current circumstances. One of Schwartz's most practical pieces of advice is to ask yourself, is this the way a big thinker would approach it? For instance, if you're considering whether to call a client back today or wait until next week, ask yourself, what would a big thinker do? If you're deciding whether to aim for 1 property sale this month or 5, ask, what would a big thinker set as a goal? When you consistently ask this, your decisions start aligning with bigger results. Schwartz warns us that small thinking doesn't feel dangerous in the moment. It feels safe, comfortable, easy. But over time, it builds a life of regret, missed chances, and unfulfilled potential. Big thinking, on the other hand, feels uncomfortable at first, but it creates growth, adventure, and success. Let me leave you with an image. Imagine your mind as a balloon. If you never blow air into it, it stays small and limp. But each time you allow yourself to imagine bigger goals, bigger possibilities, and bigger futures, you expand that balloon. It doesn't shrink back, it stays stretched, ready for more. That's what thinking big does to your life. So here's the challenge from this chapter: starting today, eliminate the small words and small thoughts that limit you. Replace them with big, bold, possibility-driven thoughts. Train your mind to see what could be, not just what is. Because in the end, the size of your success is determined by the size of your thinking. Think small, and you'll stay small. Think big, and you open yourself to a world far larger than you ever imagined. And that is the essence of this chapter: how to think big, and why it matters more than almost anything else. In this chapter, David Schwartz dives into something that separates ordinary achievers from extraordinary ones: the ability to think and dream creatively. He reminds us that creativity is not just for artists or inventors. It's for every person who wants to move forward in life, whether in business, career, relationships, or personal growth. The big message is this: creativity is simply the ability to improve, to find new solutions, and to see opportunities where others see none. Now, when people hear the word creative, they often think, that's not me. I'm not an artist. I'm not some genius. But Schwartz challenges that. He says every single one of us is born with creative potential. The problem is that over time, school, work, and society teach us to stop asking questions, to stop imagining, and to just follow the rules. Creativity isn't something a lucky few are born with, it's something we all have but must consciously use. Think about it. The person who came up with the idea of drive-through restaurants wasn't a chef, but someone who asked, how can I make it easier for people to get food without leaving their car? That small shift in thinking created an entirely new business model. Creativity isn't always about inventing something the world has never seen. More often, it's about looking at something ordinary and asking, how can I make this better, faster, simpler, or more enjoyable? Schwartz gives us simple but powerful ways to tap into this kind of thinking. The first is to believe there is always a better way. Average thinkers say, "This is how it's always been done." Creative thinkers say, "There has to be a better way." For example, look at Jeff Bezos. Online shopping existed before Amazon, but he asked, "How can I make it easier, more efficient, and more reliable?" That simple belief, that there's always a better way, led to one of the biggest companies in the world. He also tells us to ask questions constantly. Questions are the fuel of creativity. Children are naturally creative because they ask why 100 times a day. Adults stop asking. But every great breakthrough starts with a question. Think of the Wright brothers. They asked, "Why can birds fly, but humans can't? What would it take to lift a machine off the ground?" That question sparked the invention of airplanes. Another strategy Schwartz highlights is to be receptive to ideas from anywhere and anyone. Big thinkers don't say, "That idea is too small," or "That person doesn't know enough." They stay open. The best ideas often come from unexpected places. Henry Ford once said, "If I had asked people what they wanted, they would have said faster horses." But because he was open to different ways of thinking, he built the automobile instead. Schwartz also points out that creativity isn't about sudden flashes of genius. It's about cultivating habits that encourage new thinking. One habit he suggests is using what-if thinking. For instance, if you're in sales, ask yourself, what if I tried reaching clients in a different way? What if I offered something extra? What if I focused on a group no one else is serving? This type of thinking opens doors to fresh ideas. Let's make this practical with a real estate example. A traditional realtor might think, "I need to put up listings and hope buyers come." A creative realtor asks, "What if I host community events that attract potential buyers? What if I use social media in a way no one else in my area is using? What if I specialize in helping first-time buyers navigate financing in a tough market?" Those simple, what-if questions lead to unique positioning and success. Another crucial lesson is that creative thinking requires breaking away from fear of mistakes. Most people are terrified of being wrong, so they never try anything new. But Schwartz emphasizes, creative thinkers are not afraid to fail. They know that each attempt teaches them something and moves them closer to a breakthrough. Think of Steve Jobs. He failed with the Apple Lisa computer, he was even fired from Apple, but he didn't stop. He used those failures to fuel the creation of the iPhone, which transformed entire industries. The chapter also reminds us to use imagination not only for ideas but for problem solving. Instead of saying, "I can't solve this," try imagining different scenarios. For example, if your business isn't growing, don't just accept it. Imagine, what would happen if I doubled my marketing? What if I partnered with someone? What if I completely changed my approach? The act of imagining solutions often leads to one that actually works. I love the story of Walt Disney, who's mentioned often when we talk about imagination. When everyone saw animation as just short cartoons, Disney imagined full-length animated movies. When everyone saw Disneyland as a risky idea, he imagined a place where children and adults could experience magic together. His imagination didn't just entertain people, it created a global empire. That's the power of dreaming creatively. Schwartz also makes it clear that to be creative, you must get around creative environments and people. Being stuck in routine or negativity kills creativity. Surround yourself with those who challenge ideas, who brainstorm, who ask questions. In fact, he recommends deliberately exposing yourself to different industries, books, and conversations. Why? Because new input sparks new output. That's why so many innovators, like Elon Musk, read widely outside their field. Another point he makes is that creative thinking requires persistence. It's not just about getting one idea and stopping. It's about pushing past the first obvious answers into deeper, more original ones. Edison didn't invent the light bulb in one night. It was thousands of experiments. Most people quit too early, and that's why they don't see breakthroughs. To summarize the spirit of this chapter, thinking and dreaming creatively is about challenging the ordinary, asking better questions, believing there is always a better way, and daring to imagine what doesn't exist yet. The world rewards people who bring new solutions, not those who simply repeat the old ones. So here's the challenge, starting today, notice where in your life you've been thinking in routine. Ask yourself, is there a better way? What if I tried this differently? What if I looked at this problem from another angle? Don't worry about whether your idea is perfect or not. Just practice stretching your imagination. Because every invention, every successful business, every breakthrough in history, began with someone daring to think differently. And if you want to live a big life, you must train yourself to think and dream creatively. It's not optional. It's the fuel for growth, success, and extraordinary achievement. One of the most powerful ideas in this book is that how you see yourself determines how the world sees you. In other words, your self-image sets the tone for your success, your relationships, and your entire future. David Schwartz argues that people don't fail primarily because of lack of skill, intelligence, or opportunity. They fail because they underestimate themselves. They think small of themselves, so the world treats them small. Think about it, people around us pick up on the way we carry ourselves, the way we talk, the way we act. If you project confidence and believe you're capable, people naturally trust and respect you more. But if you carry doubt and insecurity, it leaks through in subtle ways, and people respond with hesitation. In short, you are what you think you are. Let's take an example from the workplace. Imagine two people interviewing for the same position. Both have the same qualifications. One enters the room with shoulders slouched, voice soft, constantly saying, "I hope I'm good enough." The other walks in upright, makes eye contact, and communicates as if they belong there. Who gets the job? 9 times out of 10, it's the one who projected belief in themselves. The skill level was equal. The difference was self-image. Schwartz stresses that you have to think of yourself as important if you want others to see you as important. He's not talking about arrogance. He's talking about healthy self-respect. When you respect yourself, you automatically command respect from others. If you see yourself as valuable, you will dress a little better, speak a little clearer, and act with more purpose. All of that influences how others respond to you. There's a story I love that connects here. In the early days of Oprah Winfrey's career, she didn't fit the mold of what television executives thought a talk show host should look like. But Oprah believed she had something unique to offer. She carried herself with conviction and spoke with such authenticity that audiences connected with her instantly. That self-belief turned her into one of the most influential people in media. If she had accepted the limiting image others projected onto her, the world would never have seen her greatness. Another big idea in this chapter is that you should always upgrade your self-image. Too many people put themselves in a box: "I'm just average, I'm not leadership material," or "I could never run a business." These thoughts become invisible chains holding them back. But when you change how you think of yourself, you unlock new behaviors. If you start seeing yourself as a leader, you'll naturally start acting like one, taking initiative, making decisions, guiding others. The image comes first, the reality follows. Let's put this into a simple example from everyday life. Think about the way you dress when you're at home lounging versus when you're heading to an important meeting. Your outfit changes not only how others see you but also how you see yourself. When you put on a sharp suit or professional attire, you automatically feel more capable, more ready. That's not vanity, it's psychology. The outside reflects and reinforces the inside. Schwartz makes the point that success-minded people never belittle themselves with negative labels. They don't call themselves just average or not smart enough. Instead, they affirm their worth. They think, "I'm capable. I have something to offer. I deserve success. These thoughts don't magically create results overnight, but they guide behavior in ways that compound into success. Another example that really drives this home is Howard Schultz, the man behind Starbucks. He grew up poor in Brooklyn, the son of a truck driver. By society standards, his future was limited. But Schultz didn't let his environment define him. He began to see himself as someone who could build and lead. That self-image pushed him to take risks, to learn business, and eventually to create a global coffee empire. His environment said, "You're limited." His self-image said, "You're capable." And guess which one won? Schwartz also encourages us to act the part of the person we want to become. If you want to be seen as successful, start acting like it now. If you want to be respected as a leader, carry yourself as one before you even get the title. This isn't about faking it, it's about growing into it. Behavior shapes reality. If you behave confidently long enough, that confidence becomes real. Here's a small but practical tip from the chapter: speak up. People with poor self-image stay quiet in meetings, they hesitate to share ideas. People with strong self-image contribute boldly. Even if their ideas aren't perfect, they show leadership simply by participating. If you consistently hide, you reinforce the image that you don't matter. If you show up, you reinforce that you're valuable. Let me give you a story from real estate. Imagine two agents starting out. One thinks, "I'm just a rookie, no one will take me seriously." They hold back, avoid big clients, and settle for scraps. The other agent thinks, "Yes, I'm new, but I'm going to act like a pro from day one." They dress sharp, communicate with authority, and approach clients with confidence. Guess who closes deals faster? It's not the one with more experience, it's the one with the stronger self-image. Schwartz also reminds us that people will treat you according to the value you place on yourself. If you think you're worth very little, you'll tolerate poor treatment. If you believe you're worth a lot, you'll demand better. Think of it this way: diamonds and glass both shine, but society pays more for diamonds because of perceived value. You are your own appraiser. If you decide you're valuable, the world follows. This chapter ends with a clear takeaway: if you want others to see you as capable, valuable, and important, you must first see yourself that way. The way you think about yourself influences how you act, and the way you act shapes how others respond. It's a cycle that starts in the mind. So here's the challenge for you: from today, start talking to yourself differently. Replace "I'm not enough" with "I'm capable." Replace "I'm just average" with "I'm important." Upgrade your image of yourself. Carry yourself with pride, not arrogance but healthy self-respect. Speak with confidence, act with energy, and remember, you are what you think you are. The world doesn't decide your value. You do. And once you raise the way you see yourself, you'll find doors opening, opportunities appearing, and people responding to you in ways you never imagined. One of the most overlooked truths about success is this: the environment you choose for yourself shapes who you become. David Schwartz explains that the people you associate with, the conversations you engage in, the things you read, and even the places you spend your time in all act like invisible forces that pull you either up or down. If you want to think big and achieve big, you cannot afford to stay in environments that make you think small. It's often said that you are the average of the 5 people you spend the most time with. Look around at your circle right now. Are the people around you pushing you forward or holding you back? If they are constantly complaining, doubting, or discouraging, then without realizing it, you begin to absorb their attitudes. Negativity is contagious. If you keep listening to small thinkers, you start to believe their limits apply to you. Take an example from sports. If a young athlete wants to be world-class, they can't just play with casual friends who treat the game as a hobby. They need to train with people who are better, faster, stronger, because being in that environment raises their own performance. In the same way, if you want to succeed in business, in real estate, or in any career, you need to surround yourself with people who think success, talk success, and live success. Schwartz tells us to deliberately seek out these positive, progressive environments. Go to places that lift your standards. Read books that expand your mind. Spend time with mentors who've already walked the path you want to walk. If you do this consistently, your thinking automatically rises. There's a beautiful real-life story here. When Sam Walton, the founder of Walmart, was building his retail empire, he spent enormous amounts of time visiting competitors' stores, learning from the best in the business. He didn't lock himself in the comfort zone of his own little shop. He put himself in environments where ideas were flowing, where excellence was visible. That habit of seeking out better environments fueled the creation of one of the largest companies in the world. Now, let's talk about going first class. Schwartz uses this phrase to remind us that our environment isn't just about people, but also about standards. When you choose first-class surroundings, you train your mind to think bigger. This doesn't mean you need to waste money you don't have, but it does mean upgrading your experiences when possible. If you always choose the cheapest, the bare minimum, your mind begins to settle for less. But when you occasionally choose the best, you program yourself to aim higher. For example, think about traveling. If you've ever flown in business class, you know the difference in experience. Suddenly you realize, wow, life can be better than cramped seats and long lines. That taste of higher quality makes you expect more from yourself in other areas of life. It doesn't mean you have to fly business class every time. It means you shouldn't permanently trap yourself in the mentality of bare minimum. Going first class occasionally conditions your brain to want excellence, and then to produce excellence. A personal growth example, let's say you always buy the cheapest shoes, the cheapest tools, or the cheapest furniture. Those items break down faster, and subconsciously you accept low standards as normal. But when you invest in a pair of high-quality shoes that last years, or a chair that supports your posture properly, you start to realize, this is what quality feels like. That shift influences the way you treat yourself, your work, and even the way others see you. Now, here's the flip side, toxic environments. Schwartz warns us that small thinkers love to pull others down. If you tell them about a big idea, they'll laugh, criticize, or call you unrealistic. He calls them negators, people who find reasons why something won't work. If you spend too much time around them, they will poison your ambition. That's why it's crucial to limit or even cut ties with environments that constantly belittle dreams. Think about Thomas Edison. He faced countless failures before inventing the light bulb. Imagine if he had surrounded himself with people who said, "Give up, you're wasting your time." The world might still be in darkness. Instead, he worked in labs, surrounded by experimentation and progress. That environment encouraged persistence. In real estate, the principle is just as clear. Picture two agents starting out. One spends most of their time with agents who are always complaining, the market is bad, clients are difficult, nobody is buying. The other agent chooses to spend time with top performers who share strategies, who talk about possibility, who celebrate wins. Both agents live in the same city, the same economy. But their environments are different, so their results will be worlds apart. Another powerful part of this chapter is the idea of exposure. If you want to think bigger, you must expose yourself to bigger things. Attend high-level events, visit neighborhoods with dream homes, walk into stores you wouldn't normally go to, not to buy, but to experience. The exposure trains your brain to see what's possible. A person who has only seen scarcity thinks small. A person who has seen abundance believes more is possible. Here's a simple exercise Schwartz suggests in spirit. Try upgrading one area of your environment this week. Maybe it's the books you read, replace a gossip magazine with a business biography. Maybe it's your circle, spend an evening with a friend who's positive and ambitious instead of one who drains your energy. Maybe it's your workspace, tidy it, decorate it, make it inspiring. Notice how quickly your thinking and mood improve. I'll share a story of my own. I once knew a man who was stuck in a low-paying job for years. He wanted to do better, but his entire circle kept telling him, "Don't take risks, be happy with what you have." Finally, he decided to join a professional networking group where people were building businesses and talking about growth. Within 1 year, he had left his job and started a small company. What changed? Not his intelligence or skills. It was the environment. The people around him gave him permission to dream bigger. Schwartz's message is simple but life-changing: you cannot grow in a negative, limiting environment. If you want success, deliberately place yourself in first-class environments that uplift you, expose you to bigger ideas, and surround you with people who expect more. So here's your takeaway: choose your company carefully. Seek out people who are ahead of you, who inspire you. Upgrade your surroundings when you can. Read and listen to material that builds you up, not tears you down. Remember, your environment is like soil. If it's rich and nourishing, you'll flourish. If it's poor and toxic, your growth will be stunted. Ultimately, your mind is a garden, and your environment is the soil and climate. If you want to grow roses, you cannot plant them in concrete. Choose your environment wisely, and you'll see yourself bloom into the person you were meant to be. Imagine this: you're working hard, doing everything you can, but still feeling like success is slipping just out of reach. Most people, when they hit this wall, think, maybe I'm not talented enough. Maybe others have better connections. Maybe I just don't have what it takes. But David Schwartz, in The Magic of Thinking Big, reveals a simple truth that flips this whole idea upside down. Success isn't really about how much talent you were born with, but about the size of your thinking. Chapter 8 is about putting this into practice by learning to turn defeat into victory. It's a chapter about resilience, perspective, and the way you respond when things don't go your way. Think about it: setbacks are universal. Nobody wins all the time. Every entrepreneur, every leader, every top achiever has faced disappointment, rejection, or even outright failure. But what sets them apart isn't that they avoided defeat, but how they responded when defeat showed up. Schwartz tells us bluntly, defeat is not the opposite of success. It's a stepping stone to success, if you know how to use it. One of the first things he points out is that average thinkers treat defeat as the end. They get a no from a customer, and they sulk. They lose one job opportunity, and they stop trying. They put their product out there and it doesn't sell, and they conclude, maybe I'm just not cut out for this. Their small thinking makes them see failure as a personal label: I failed, therefore I am a failure. That's dangerous, because it kills momentum before progress can even start. But big thinkers flip the script. When they face defeat, they don't internalize it. They analyze it. They ask, what went wrong? What can I do differently? What lesson is this trying to teach me? They turn what looks like a dead end into a detour that leads them closer to their goal. Let's bring this to life with some examples. Thomas Edison is the classic case. When inventing the light bulb, he failed over 1,000 times. Journalists asked him how it felt to fail 1,000 times, and Edison famously replied, I didn't fail 1,000 times. The light bulb was an invention with 1,000 steps. That mindset is pure thinking big. Instead of stamping the label, failure, on himself, he saw each defeat as valuable progress. Now contrast that with the everyday person who applies for a promotion, doesn't get it, and immediately tells themselves, I'm not leadership material. The difference is enormous. It's not the external event, it's the internal interpretation. And Schwartz emphasizes that the way you interpret defeat determines whether you grow stronger or shrink smaller. Here's another modern example. Imagine two real estate agents in Surrey. Both go through a tough month where every single deal falls through. One agent gets discouraged, stops prospecting, and blames the market. The other agent says, okay, clearly my presentation isn't connecting. I'm going to refine my pitch, practice my listing presentation, and study the objections clients gave me. Guess who's going to come back stronger next month? Same defeat, two completely different outcomes. Schwartz also digs into the importance of persistence. He reminds us that defeat is only permanent when you accept it as final. Think about the difference between a temporary defeat and permanent failure. Temporary defeat is what happens to everyone: a project stalls, a deal collapses, an idea doesn't work. Permanent failure only happens when you stop trying. He's saying, don't stop. Adjust, adapt, and keep moving. Here's a great story to illustrate. In the 1990s, J.K. Rowling sent the manuscript of Harry Potter to 12 publishers. Every single one rejected it. She could have easily said, well, I guess I'm not an author. Instead, she kept going, until one small publisher finally took a chance. The rest is history, one of the most successful book series ever written. What looked like defeat was just a test of persistence. And Schwartz makes a practical point: if you look at defeat as a learning tool, it loses its sting. He encourages readers to treat every setback as feedback. Instead of saying, I lost, say, I learned. That shift makes all the difference in your emotional resilience. Now, let's bring it closer to everyday life. Maybe you're trying to lose weight. You follow a strict plan for a week, then have a weekend where you binge. A small thinker says, see, I have no discipline. I'll never succeed. They quit. A big thinker says, all right, that weekend set me back. What triggered it? Oh, I didn't plan my meals before the party. Next time, I'll plan better. Same slip up, but one response leads to growth, the other to giving up. Another thing Schwartz emphasizes is refusing to blame others when you face defeat. He says that losers look for scapegoats. They say, it was the boss's fault. The client was unfair. The timing was bad. My competitors are lucky. But winners take responsibility. Even if circumstances were unfair, they ask, what part of this do I control? What can I improve for next time? That ownership is what keeps them moving forward. Take sports as an example. A losing team can blame referees, injuries, or the weather. But the champions say, we didn't execute. We need to practice harder. That's why they eventually rise above. Schwartz also gives a powerful piece of advice: never let defeat destroy your confidence. It's easy to connect one bad outcome with your self-worth. You flub a presentation at work, and suddenly you feel like you're not competent. You lose one sale, and suddenly you think, maybe I'm not cut out for this field. That's dangerous because confidence is fuel. Without it, you stop taking risks. He insists that you must protect your confidence by separating the event from your identity. Say to yourself, that project failed, but I'm not a failure. A real-life story here is Michael Jordan's career. In high school, Jordan was cut from the varsity basketball team. Imagine if he had concluded, I'm not good enough. Instead, he turned that sting of defeat into motivation to train harder. Years later, he became one of the greatest athletes in history. The key? He didn't let one defeat define him. To make this practical, Schwartz suggests creating a kind of mental habit. Whenever you face defeat, force yourself to write down 3 lessons you gained from it. This reframes the situation from, I lost, to, I learned. And he warns us, the person who doesn't analyze defeat is doomed to repeat it. Now let's humanize this with a simple everyday scenario. Imagine you're trying to start a YouTube channel. You post your first 3 videos and they get barely any views. One person says, this is embarrassing. Clearly, I'm not cut out for this. I quit. Another person says, okay, why didn't these videos get traction? Maybe I need to improve my thumbnails. Maybe my titles need to be more engaging. Maybe I need to post more consistently. Guess who eventually grows an audience? It's the person who uses early defeat as training, not as a verdict. Schwartz also touches on the importance of courage. He says that defeat often tempts people to play it safe, to avoid risks altogether so they don't have to face failure again. But that's the trap. Playing it safe guarantees mediocrity. He encourages boldness, keep stepping out, keep trying, because every attempt increases your odds of success. Think about sales. A timid salesperson makes 5 calls a day because they're scared of rejection. They get rejected 3 times, and it feels like the world's ending. A confident salesperson makes 50 calls a day. They still get rejected 30 times, but those 20 positive responses turn into real results. The difference isn't luck, it's the willingness to face defeat more often, and to see it as part of the process. And let's not forget one of Schwartz's underlying messages: attitude is everything. He repeats throughout the book that the way you choose to think creates your reality. If you think of defeat as destruction, it will destroy you. If you think of defeat as education, it will empower you. So, what's the real magic here? It's not that defeat disappears. It's that you become bigger than your defeats. You stop seeing them as walls and start seeing them as stepping stones. Every time you face a setback, you're actually closer to victory, because you've gained experience, insight, and resilience. Now, let's bring it home with a relatable image. Imagine climbing a mountain. Along the way, you trip, slip, and sometimes fall back a few steps. The small thinker says, "This is too hard, I can't make it." They go back down. The big thinker says, "All right, I slipped there because the ground was loose. Next time I'll watch my footing." And they keep climbing. At the end, only the big thinkers reach the summit, not because the climb was easier, but because they never let defeat define them. So, here's the takeaway from this chapter: stop fearing defeat. Expect it. Welcome it. Use it. Every no gets you closer to a yes. Every stumble prepares you for a smoother stride. Defeat is not your enemy. It's your teacher. And if you can embrace that lesson, you'll find that victory isn't just possible, it's inevitable. Picture this: you're walking into a room filled with strangers, maybe a networking event, a business seminar, or even just a social gathering. Immediately, you notice 2 types of people. One person enters with their head down, shoulders slouched, avoiding eye contact, giving off the vibe of, "I don't belong here." The other person walks in with a smile, an air of calm confidence, shaking hands, and instantly attracting attention. Which one do you think people gravitate toward? The truth is, your environment and how you project yourself into it matters more than you think. That's what this chapter is all about: how to think right toward people, and how to build the kind of relationships that multiply your success. David Schwartz reminds us that success is never a solo project. It's built on relationships. Your ability to connect with people, to win their trust, to make them feel important, is often more valuable than technical skills. And yet, many people sabotage themselves without even realizing it, because they think small about people. They carry envy, resentment, criticism, or an "I'm better than you" mindset, and that energy pushes others away. So what does it mean to think right toward people? At its core, it's about treating people with respect, kindness, and generosity of spirit. It's about seeing every person as valuable and important. When you think big about people, they sense it, and they want to work with you, help you, and support your success. Let's break this down. Schwartz highlights several principles for building positive relationships. The first one is simple but powerful: never underestimate the importance of showing genuine interest in others. Most people are so wrapped up in their own lives that they rarely give real attention to others. But when you stop and really listen, when you ask questions and show you care, you create a bond that sets you apart. Think about it. Who do you like talking to more? The person who only talks about themselves, or the one who listens to your story, asks follow-up questions, and remembers the little details? Of course, it's the second person. They make you feel important, and as Schwartz emphasizes, that's the deepest human need, the need to feel important. Here's a real-life example. Imagine you're a real estate agent meeting a new client. One approach is to immediately start pitching. Here's what I can do, here's my experience, here's why I'm the best agent. The other approach is to ask, tell me about your dream home. What's important for your family? What worries do you have about this process? That second approach makes the client feel valued, and guess who they'll want to work with? Another principle Schwartz emphasizes is to avoid criticism, gossip, and negativity. He warns that small thinkers constantly cut people down. They look for flaws, highlight mistakes, and spread negative energy. But big thinkers look for the good in people. They give encouragement, they build others up, and as a result, they win loyalty and goodwill. Let's humanize this with a workplace story. Imagine two managers. Manager A constantly criticizes their team, pointing out what they did wrong, never offering praise. Over time, the team resents them and only does the bare minimum. Manager B, on the other hand, acknowledges mistakes but focuses on encouragement. Here's what we can improve, and by the way, I appreciate the hard work you've put in. That team feels valued, and they go the extra mile. Both managers get results, but one builds resentment while the other builds loyalty. Which one do you think lasts longer in their success? Schwartz also tells us to think service. In other words, always ask, how can I help? People who succeed at the highest levels aren't takers, they're givers. They build networks of goodwill by offering value without expecting immediate returns. Over time, that generosity comes back multiplied. Think about some of the most admired leaders in business. They're known for empowering others, for mentoring, for helping their teams succeed. That's why their organizations thrive, because they've created a culture where people feel cared for. And this principle applies even in small, everyday ways. If you're at a party and you introduce two people who might benefit from knowing each other, you've just created value. If you take time to help a colleague solve a problem, you've built trust. These little moments of thinking service add up to a reputation that opens doors. Another critical point Schwartz makes is about envy. He says envy is poison. When you resent someone else's success, you shrink your own possibilities. Instead of learning from them, you waste energy comparing and complaining. Big thinkers flip envy into inspiration. When they see someone succeeding, they ask, what can I learn from them? How can I use their example to improve myself? Here's a simple illustration. Imagine two agents at a brokerage. One sees a colleague close a big deal and thinks, they don't deserve it. They just got lucky. This isn't fair. The other says, wow, they really crushed it. Let me ask them how they approached their client. Maybe I can use that strategy too. The first agent stays stuck. The second agent grows. Schwartz also reminds us that the way you speak about others reflects the way you think. If you habitually use negative words, people feel that energy. But if you practice building others up, you not only make them feel better, you also elevate your own confidence. It's a win-win. Now let's think about this in practical daily life. If you're a parent, do your children hear more criticism from you or encouragement? If you're a spouse, do you highlight your partner's flaws more than their strengths? If you're a colleague, do you gossip or do you give credit? These little choices create the emotional climate around you, and they either attract people or repel them. Another big idea in this chapter is cooperation. Schwartz insists that success in modern life depends on working with others, not against them. The lone wolf mentality doesn't work anymore. He says, success depends on the support and goodwill of others. That means collaboration is not optional, it's essential. For example, think about professional sports. Even the greatest player can't win alone. Michael Jordan needed his teammates. Lionel Messi needs a team. The same is true in business. A brilliant idea still needs partners, investors, employees, and customers to bring it to life. But here's the key: cooperation isn't just about working alongside people. It's about creating harmony, trust, and mutual respect. And that starts with your attitude. If you see people as rivals, you'll create friction. If you see them as allies, you'll create synergy. Let me share a small story. I know of a realtor who used to see every other agent as competition. She hoarded information, never collaborated, and even spread rumors to undermine others. She struggled for years. Then she shifted her perspective. She began cooperating, co-hosting open houses, sharing referrals, and building a network of trust. Within a year, her business skyrocketed because she wasn't fighting alone anymore. Schwartz closes this chapter with an inspiring reminder: people are your greatest asset. Not money, not technology, not strategies, people. If you learn to think right toward people, to value them, respect them, encourage them, and work with them, success becomes not only easier but also far more fulfilling. So let's tie this together. Thinking right toward people means: see the good in others, not just their flaws. Replace envy with inspiration. Make people feel important through genuine attention and listening. Offer service and value without always expecting something back. Build cooperation, not competition. When you live this way, doors open. Opportunities multiply. And perhaps most importantly, your life becomes richer, because you're surrounded by people who trust you, respect you, and want to see you win. Imagine two futures. In one, you're talented, skilled, hardworking, but you've alienated people through criticism, envy, and selfishness. Your progress is limited, because people don't want to help you. In the other, you're equally skilled, but you've built strong, warm relationships. You've earned goodwill. Suddenly, people refer clients to you, opportunities land in your lap, and you're invited into rooms you didn't even know existed. The difference isn't luck. It's how you think toward people. That's the essence of this chapter. If you want big success, think big toward people. Treat them as allies, not obstacles. And remember, people don't remember every detail of what you say or do, but they will always remember how you made them feel. Imagine for a moment that you're driving a car. You've got a powerful engine, the tank is full, the road ahead is open, but if you don't have control of the steering wheel, what happens? You drift. You swerve. You might even crash. This is exactly what happens in life when we don't master ourselves. Talent, energy, and ambition are useless if you can't direct them properly. And that's the big lesson in this chapter: success depends not just on big thinking, but on self-discipline, self-control, and the ability to channel your energy in the right direction. David Schwartz explains that one of the biggest barriers to success isn't lack of intelligence, lack of opportunity, or even bad luck. It's our inability to control our impulses and emotions. People who fail often don't lose because of outside forces, they lose because they beat themselves. They let anger, envy, fear, or bad habits control them instead of mastering those forces. Think about it in everyday terms. How many promising careers have been ruined because someone couldn't control their temper? How many relationships collapsed because one person couldn't manage their jealousy? How many financial futures were destroyed because of the inability to control spending? The pattern is the same: lack of self-control sabotages potential. So what does it mean to master yourself? Schwartz outlines several key ideas. The first is controlling your emotions. He warns that anger, resentment, and negativity act like acid. They burn you more than the person you aim them at. Successful people don't waste energy in fits of rage or bitterness. They stay calm, composed, and focused. Here's a real-life example. Think about sports again. A top tennis player might face a bad call from the referee. If they explode in anger, slam their racket, and argue, what happens? Their concentration breaks. They lose momentum. But the great players, think of Roger Federer, stay composed. They channel their energy back into the game. The ability to control emotion directly affects performance. Another principle Schwartz emphasizes is controlling your tongue. He says, your tongue is your most dangerous organ. Learn to master it, and you master much of yourself. Many people talk themselves into trouble by saying things in anger, gossiping, or revealing too much. But successful people think before they speak. They use words as tools to build, not weapons to destroy. Consider this in business. Imagine two entrepreneurs negotiating a deal. One blurts out frustrations, criticizes the other side, and leaks too much information. The other listens carefully, speaks thoughtfully, and stays composed. Who's going to walk away with the better outcome? The disciplined one. Schwartz also highlights another form of self-control, managing habits. He reminds us that success is often the result of small disciplines practiced consistently, waking up early, staying organized, exercising regularly, reading daily. Failure, on the other hand, is often just bad habits compounded, procrastination, overreading, spending too much time on distractions. Here's an example from everyday life. Think of two salespeople starting on the same day. One makes a habit of calling 5 new prospects every morning without fail. The other procrastinates, checks social media, and makes calls only when in the mood. A year later, who's thriving and who's struggling? The difference isn't talent. It's discipline. But here's the catch, self-control isn't about being rigid or joyless. It's not about denying yourself everything. It's about balance and mastery. Schwartz uses the metaphor of driving again. When you're in control of the wheel, you can still speed up, slow down, take detours, enjoy the scenery. You're free to explore, but safely. Another key point Schwartz makes is about controlling your ego. He warns against arrogance and the need to constantly prove yourself. Big thinkers don't need to show off or dominate. They're confident enough to stay humble, to give credit, to learn from others. Small thinkers, by contrast, let their egos get in the way. They always need to be right, to win every argument, to have the last word, and that attitude pushes people away. Think about a boss you may have worked for. One boss always needed to prove how smart they were, shooting down ideas, making employees feel small. Another boss had authority but also humility. They asked questions, listened, and gave credit. Which team thrived? Which boss inspired loyalty? That's the power of ego control. Now let's talk about financial self-control. Schwartz stresses that money, like power, is a tool that requires discipline. Many people earn well but stay broke because they can't control spending. Others grow wealth steadily by practicing restraint and living below their means. He says the habit of financial discipline not only protects you but also builds confidence. Knowing you're in control of your finances gives you peace of mind and freedom to think bigger. A simple example, 2 young professionals both earn $5,000 a month. One spends $5,200 every month, piling on debt. The other lives on $4,000, saves $1,000, and invests. 10 years later, the difference is staggering. Again, it's not intelligence. It's discipline. Another area of self-control Schwartz touches on is health. He emphasizes that success demands energy, and energy depends on taking care of your body. Overeating, smoking, drinking excessively, neglecting exercise, these are forms of self-indulgence that drain energy and shorten your productive years. Self-discipline in health isn't about punishment, it's about preserving the fuel you need to achieve your goals. Picture 2 executives. One burns the candle at both ends, eats poorly, never exercises, and relies on caffeine and stress to push through. The other maintains balance, gets rest, eats clean, exercises. Fast forward 15 years. Who's still sharp, strong, and effective? The one who practiced self-control. And here's something subtle but powerful. Schwartz reminds us, self-control also means controlling what you let into your mind. Garbage in, garbage out. If you feed your mind with negativity, constant drama, and toxic influences, your thinking will be poisoned. But if you control your mental diet, reading uplifting books, surrounding yourself with positive people, consuming ideas that expand you, your mind becomes your ally. Let's tie this all together. Mastering yourself means control your emotions, especially anger and resentment. Control your tongue, use words to build, not destroy. Control your habits, success is built on daily disciplines. Control your ego, humility wins more than arrogance. Control your money, financial discipline creates freedom. Control your health, energy is the fuel of success. Control your mind, guard your mental environment. This might sound like a lot, but here's the good news, self-control is like a muscle. The more you exercise it in small ways, the stronger it gets. If you can resist one unnecessary purchase, you strengthen financial discipline. If you can hold your tongue in one argument, you strengthen emotional control. Small wins build the capacity for big wins. Think about someone training for a marathon. They don't start by running 42 kilometers on day one. They start small, a few miles at a time, and build stamina. Self-control works the same way. Every small act of discipline builds your ability to master bigger challenges. And perhaps the most inspiring takeaway is this, mastering yourself is the ultimate freedom. People think discipline is restrictive, but the opposite is true. When you control yourself, you're no longer a slave to impulses, habits, or emotions. You're free to pursue your biggest dreams without self-sabotage. Imagine two futures again. In one, you're talented, ambitious, but impulsive. You burn bridges with your temper, you spend recklessly, you waste time. No matter how hard you try, you keep hitting walls. In the other future, you're equally talented, but disciplined. You stay calm under pressure, manage money wisely, guard your health, choose your words carefully. Opportunities keep expanding because people trust you and you trust yourself. The difference is not luck. It's self-mastery. That's the essence of this chapter. If you want to achieve big things, learn first to control the small things, yourself. Success doesn't begin with conquering the world. It begins with conquering the person in the mirror. Imagine walking into a room where everyone seems taller, more confident, more successful than you. How do you carry yourself? Do you shrink, avoid eye contact, try to blend into the background? Or do you stand tall, smile, and act as though you belong? That choice, the way you project yourself, often determines how others treat you and how much success you attract. This chapter is about learning to think and act like a leader, even before you have the title. Schwartz reminds us, leadership isn't reserved for CEOs, presidents, or generals. Leadership is influence. It's the ability to get people to follow you, to trust you, to cooperate with you. And the surprising thing is, you don't wait until you arrive to act like a leader. You start now, wherever you are. Schwartz breaks leadership into several key habits, and each of them can be learned. Let's walk through them. The first habit is thinking big about people. Small thinkers look down on others, criticize, or gossip. Big thinkers see potential in people and treat them with respect. Schwartz says people rise or fall to the level of how we treat them. If you treat someone as capable and valuable, they're more likely to perform at that level. If you treat them as incompetent or unimportant, they often live down to that. Think about a teacher who sees potential in a struggling student. Instead of labeling them as lazy, she says, "I know you're capable of great work." The student feels respected, motivated, and begins to rise. That's leadership in action, lifting people up by how you see them. The second leadership principle is praise and appreciation. Schwartz insists that leaders give people recognition, not criticism. He says one of the most powerful phrases you can use is, "I'm proud of you." Successful leaders look for ways to compliment effort, to encourage, to make people feel important. Criticism often crushes spirit, praise multiplies energy. Consider a workplace example. Two managers handle the same mistake differently. One manager scolds the employee, "You always mess this up." The other says, "I know you care about getting this right, let's fix it together." Who gets better results? The leader who shows belief and encouragement. The third habit of leadership is thinking service first. Schwartz emphasizes that real leaders focus on how they can help, not what they can get. They ask, "How can I serve others? How can I add value?" In business, this means thinking beyond sales quotas and focusing on solving the customer's problem. In personal life, it means thinking of others' needs, not just your own. Here's a simple example. Imagine two real estate agents. One is only concerned about closing the deal and getting the commission. The other truly wants the client to find the right home, even if it takes more time or brings less profit. Who do you think will build long-term trust, referrals, and a reputation? The one who serves first. The fourth leadership trait is setting the example. Schwartz reminds us, people watch what you do more than what you say. A parent can lecture their kids about honesty, but if they cheat on taxes, the lesson is lost. A manager can demand punctuality, but if they stroll in late, their words mean nothing. Leaders model the behavior they expect. Think of sports captains. The most respected ones don't just give pep talks, they hustle hardest, train hardest, and set the tone. Their actions inspire more than speeches ever could. Another crucial point Schwartz makes is about listening. He says big leaders are big listeners. Small thinkers do all the talking, desperate to prove themselves. But leaders listen deeply, showing respect and making people feel heard. This not only earns trust but also gives leaders more information to make better decisions. Have you ever had a conversation where someone really listened, not just nodding, but truly paying attention, asking questions, remembering details? It feels empowering, right? That's what leaders do for their people. Schwartz also touches on vision. Leaders see more than others see. They're not stuck in the weeds, they look ahead, imagining what could be. And then, they help others see that vision too. Think of Martin Luther King Jr.'s "I Have a Dream" speech. He painted a vivid picture of a future of equality and justice. People rallied not just around him, but around that vision. Now, let's look at some everyday applications. Suppose you're not a manager, not a business owner, maybe you're just starting your career. Can you still lead? Absolutely. Leadership is about behavior, not titles. If you treat colleagues with respect, if you show initiative, if you think service first, people will notice. You become someone others want to follow. Schwartz gives a practical tip: begin to act like the kind of leader you aspire to be. Carry yourself with confidence. Speak with assurance. Show courtesy. Make others feel important. Soon, you'll find people naturally see you as a leader. Let's make this more personal. Imagine two employees at the same level. One grumbles, avoids responsibility, criticizes others, and waits to be told what to do. The other smiles, volunteers to help, compliments coworkers, and shows initiative. Who do you think gets promoted? Who inspires others? That's leadership, earned, not handed. Another important leadership quality Schwartz mentions is courage. Leaders take responsibility when things go wrong. They don't shift blame. They make decisions instead of waiting for perfect certainty. And they're willing to stand alone for what's right, even when unpopular. Think of business pioneers, like Elon Musk. Agree or disagree with him, you can't deny his courage in betting on electric cars and rockets when others laughed. Courage attracts followers because people want someone who dares to go first. Schwartz also explains that leaders are dealers in hope. They inspire confidence even in tough times. Instead of spreading fear or doubt, they help others believe in a better outcome. A leader in a crisis says, "We'll get through this together. Here's our plan." That reassurance keeps people moving forward. Here's a small but powerful illustration. During World War II, Winston Churchill gave speeches that lifted a whole nation. He didn't deny the danger, but he gave people hope and courage. We shall never surrender. That's leadership through words and conviction. So how do we practice leadership in daily life? Schwartz gives us a formula. Think big about people, see their potential. Give praise generously. Focus on service, not self-interest. Set the example, walk your talk. Listen more than you speak. Share vision. Show courage. Spread hope. It might sound like a tall order, but here's the beauty. Every one of these traits can be practiced in small steps. Compliment a colleague today. Listen fully in your next conversation. Offer help without expecting anything back. Each act builds your leadership muscle. And the payoff? People begin to trust you, follow you, support you. Opportunities expand because people want to work with leaders. Remember, leadership isn't about power over people. It's about power with people. It's about creating momentum, harmony, and growth. To wrap this up, Schwartz reminds us that the world desperately needs more leaders, not necessarily presidents or CEOs, but everyday people who step up with vision, courage, and service. Whether in families, workplaces, communities, or businesses, leadership is what moves us forward. And you don't have to wait to be chosen. You can start leading right where you are. When you walk into that room full of people again, don't shrink. Stand tall. Think big about others. Serve. Listen. Lead. That's how you become the kind of person others believe in. That's how you make a big difference, and that's how you think big. Picture a man sitting at his desk at the end of the day. His inbox is overflowing, the phone won't stop ringing, and the to-do list is longer than when he started. He sighs, rubs his forehead, and thinks, if only I had more time, I could finally get ahead. That thought is so common, yet it's misleading. Because the truth is, time is the one resource we all receive equally. What separates successful people from the average isn't the amount of time they have, but how they use it. This chapter is about managing your environment and your time so you can think and act bigger. Schwartz reminds us that success requires control. If you allow your surroundings, habits, and distractions to dictate your schedule, you'll always feel behind. But if you take charge, deliberately shaping your environment and your hours, you multiply your effectiveness. The first big lesson here is that your environment shapes your thinking. Spend your days around complainers, gossips, and small thinkers, and soon you'll find yourself echoing their mindset. But if you surround yourself with ambitious, forward-looking, positive people, their energy lifts you. Schwartz urges us to be deliberate about the company we keep, because environment is contagious. If you want to think big, place yourself among those who already do. Think of it like this: imagine two employees. One spends his breaks with coworkers who complain about management, predict layoffs, and blame others for every problem. The other spends his breaks networking with people who brainstorm solutions, share growth ideas, and encourage each other. At the end of a year, which one has more opportunities, more optimism, and more confidence? It's not even close. Environment either holds you back or propels you forward. The second lesson in this chapter is about isolation from trivial things. Schwartz says most people are busy, but not productive. They fill hours with low-value tasks, endless emails, pointless meetings, gossip, scrolling through news, fixing minor details. Meanwhile, their most important goals sit untouched. Big thinkers know how to separate the essential from the trivial. They isolate themselves from distractions long enough to focus deeply on what really matters. Consider a writer trying to finish a book. If they answer every phone call, check messages every 10 minutes, and run small errands in between, they'll struggle for months. But if they shut off notifications, close the door, and dedicate 3 uninterrupted hours, the book progresses quickly. That isolation from trivia isn't laziness, it's discipline. Schwartz also emphasizes delegation. He says leaders don't try to do everything themselves. They identify what only they can do, and they delegate the rest. This doesn't just free time, it builds others' abilities. Think of a business owner who insists on handling every detail, from payroll to marketing to stocking shelves. They burn out. Compare that with the owner who trains employees to take on responsibilities. They free themselves for strategy, growth, and big opportunities. Another point Schwartz makes is about protecting your mind from gossip and negativity. He says gossip is the enemy of big thinking, because it keeps your mind occupied with pettiness. Every minute spent discussing someone else's flaws is a minute stolen from improving your own future. He encourages us to politely step away from those conversations and redirect energy toward constructive thinking. Now, let's talk about time specifically. Schwartz introduces the concept of depositing time in the success bank. Just as money saved earns interest, time invested in self-development compounds. Reading, learning, building skills, planning, these may not bring instant rewards, but they pay huge dividends over time. Here's an example. Imagine 2 salespeople. One spends evenings watching random TV shows. The other spends evenings studying books on communication, practicing presentations, or networking with mentors. After 5 years, the difference in success, income, and confidence is massive. Same 24 hours, completely different results. Another real-world story comes to mind. Warren Buffett is known not just for his investing genius but for how he manages time. He clears his calendar, avoids unnecessary meetings, and spends hours reading and thinking. He says, the difference between successful people and really successful people is that really successful people say no to almost everything. That's exactly what Schwartz emphasizes: control your environment and time ruthlessly if you want to think big. This chapter also teaches that procrastination is the enemy of big success. Small thinkers wait for perfect conditions, the perfect moment, the perfect clarity, the perfect mood. Big thinkers act. They understand conditions are never perfect, but action creates momentum. Schwartz suggests asking yourself daily, what am I doing today that will get me closer to my big goals? If the answer is nothing, you're procrastinating. Let's bring this to a relatable example. Suppose someone dreams of starting their own business. They keep saying, I'll do it when I have more savings, more knowledge, more time. Years pass. Meanwhile, someone else with fewer resources takes small steps, launching part-time, learning as they go, adjusting mistakes. After 5 years, one still has a dream, the other has a thriving business. Schwartz also talks about thinking in terms of priorities. He says many people waste energy on the urgent but unimportant. They confuse activity with accomplishment. Leaders, however, ask, what matters most? What will have the greatest long-term impact? And then they focus energy there. One simple exercise he suggests: at the end of each day, write down your 3 biggest priorities for tomorrow. Then, when the day begins, attack those first before anything else. This habit alone, he says, can transform productivity. There's also a fascinating section where Schwartz explains how attitude toward problems affects time. He says people who avoid problems waste enormous energy complaining, denying, or running from them. Successful people tackle problems quickly and directly, freeing their mind to move forward. Every hour spent worrying is an hour stolen from solutions. A great example is Thomas Edison. When his lab burned down, destroying years of work, his reaction wasn't despair. He said, "Thank God all our mistakes were burned up. Now we can start fresh again." That attitude saved time. Instead of months of mourning, he was back to work the next day. Another story closer to home might be in real estate. An agent loses a big client. A small thinker might dwell on the loss for weeks, replaying what went wrong. A big thinker acknowledges it, extracts lessons, then moves quickly to prospect for new leads. Result? They stay ahead while others fall behind. One more important piece here: Schwartz urges us to use time to build relationships. Networking, mentoring, encouraging others, these aren't extra activities. They're investments that create opportunities you can't always predict. He reminds us, opportunities come through people, and the time you spend nurturing relationships often yields greater rewards than solitary effort. Let's take an example from history. Andrew Carnegie, the steel magnate, said his greatest asset wasn't his factories or resources, it was the people he worked with. He spent time building trust and empowering his team. That human capital built an empire. So, let's bring this chapter together. What is it really solving? It's solving the problem of wasted time, wasted energy, and wasted potential. Too many people let their environment drag them down, let trivial tasks consume them, let procrastination steal their dreams. Schwartz offers a way out. Surround yourself with big thinkers. Isolate from trivia and gossip. Delegate what you can. Invest time in learning and relationships. Attack problems quickly. Focus on priorities, not distractions. If you practice these, your 24 hours don't magically expand, but your results do. You become more effective, less stressed, and more in control of your future. Imagine again that man at his desk, exhausted at the end of the day. What if instead, he spent his day focused on priorities, avoided gossip, delegated minor tasks, invested an hour in self-growth, and ended by encouraging his team? He'd not only feel accomplished, he'd be miles closer to his big goals. That's the shift Schwartz wants us to make. Time is precious, environment is powerful, and both are under your control. Use them wisely, and you'll think bigger, act bigger, and achieve bigger than you ever imagined. Imagine for a moment you're at a crossroads in life. To the left is the familiar path, safe, predictable, filled with people doing what they've always done. To the right is a road less traveled, filled with challenges, uncertainty, but also enormous opportunity. Most people stick to the left. Why? Because it's comfortable. But those who choose the right, who dare to think bigger, dream bigger, and act bigger, discover what life can truly offer. That's the spirit Schwartz leaves us with in the final chapter. This chapter is about turning all the ideas in the book into a way of life, making the magic of thinking big your permanent mindset, not just something you apply once in a while. He reminds us that success isn't about talent, luck, or even intelligence as much as it is about attitude. If you consistently nurture big thoughts, they shape your actions, and your actions shape your destiny. One of the core ideas here is that you become what you think about. Schwartz echoes the timeless truth: your mind is like fertile soil. Plant seeds of doubt, worry, and limitation, and you'll reap weeds. Plant seeds of confidence, hope, and possibility, and you'll reap a harvest of success. He challenges us to be deliberate gardeners of our own minds. Consider two people offered the same opportunity. One thinks, "I'm not ready. I'll probably fail. Better not risk it." The other thinks, "This is my chance. I may not know everything, but I'll learn, and I'll figure it out." Guess who grows, and guess who stays stuck? The difference isn't opportunity, it's mindset. Another theme Schwartz emphasizes is action. He says ideas alone won't change your life. Thinking big must always be followed by doing big. If you only dream but never act, your dreams remain fantasy. But if you act, even imperfectly, doors open. He warns against the trap of over-preparing or waiting for the perfect time. He says the perfect time rarely comes, action creates its own momentum. Think about entrepreneurs. Many of the most successful didn't have every detail figured out when they started. They launched, adjusted, learned on the go. Had they waited for complete certainty, they'd still be waiting. That's a reminder for all of us: start now, refine as you go. Schwartz also closes with the importance of persistence. He says setbacks are not signs to quit, but tests of how badly you want your dream. Every great success story is built on countless failures that someone refused to let define them. Thomas Edison failed thousands of times before inventing the light bulb. Walt Disney was rejected by banks over and over before building Disneyland. Big thinkers don't avoid failure, they use it as fuel. One very human example: imagine someone starting a YouTube channel. In the beginning, they upload videos and barely get any views. Most people quit, thinking, it's not working. But the persistent creator keeps improving, keeps learning, keeps publishing. After a year, they find their voice, grow an audience, and eventually succeed. The difference? Persistence rooted in big thinking. Another lesson in this final chapter is about service. Schwartz reminds us that true success isn't selfish. It's about adding value, helping others, and leaving the world better than you found it. He says the more people you help, the more success naturally flows back to you. That's why many of the most successful individuals aren't just wealthy, they're respected, admired, and remembered. Picture someone like Oprah Winfrey. Her empire isn't just built on business, it's built on the value she's given millions of people through encouragement, wisdom, and authenticity. That's exactly what Schwartz means: success multiplies when rooted in service. As the book comes to a close, Schwartz encourages us to keep practicing the techniques daily. Remind yourself constantly to think big. Use positive language that builds confidence. Surround yourself with people who lift you higher. Manage your time and environment for growth. Act decisively, even when conditions aren't perfect. Persist through setbacks with faith in yourself. And always think in terms of value, what you can give as well as what you can gain. He also suggests simple rituals to keep your thinking on track. For instance, beginning each day with affirmations like, "Today I will think and act confidently," or ending each day reflecting, "What did I do today that moved me closer to my big goals?" These small habits keep your mind tuned to success. And then comes his final message: success is not a matter of luck. It's not something reserved for a chosen few. It's available to anyone who chooses to think big. Your future is created by the size of your thoughts. If you think small, you'll live small. If you think big, act big, and persist, you can achieve beyond what you once believed possible. So let's tie this book together. From the very beginning, Schwartz challenged us to believe in ourselves, to destroy fear, to use positive language, to set high goals, to manage our environment, to take action, to persist, and to serve. Each chapter was a step in building a mindset where big thinking becomes natural. And now, at the end, his message is clear: don't just read these ideas, live them. Let's return to that image of the crossroads. Every day, you stand there. To the left is the comfortable, the safe, the small. To the right is the uncertain, the challenging, the big. The choice is always yours. Schwartz urges us to take the right path, the big path. Because the real magic of thinking big isn't just about money or status. It's about living fully, becoming the best version of yourself, and inspiring others to do the same. As you close this book, ask yourself, what big goal have I been holding back on? What dream have I been postponing? And then take one bold step toward it today. Because the magic doesn't come from just knowing these principles. The magic comes from using them. And so, The journey of the magic of thinking big ends with a challenge, to think bigger than you ever have before, to act on those big thoughts, and to make your life a living example of what's possible when you refuse to settle for small. That is the true magic. As we wrap up this journey through the magic of thinking big, let's pause and remember the heart of it all. Your thoughts shape your reality. Big thoughts create big lives. Small thoughts keep us trapped. David Schwartz didn't just give us theories, he gave us a blueprint to think with confidence, to act with courage, and to persist when others quit. He reminded us that success isn't about luck or talent, it's about the size of our thinking and the actions we take because of it. So here's the final challenge: don't let this book stay on the shelf of your memory. Live it. Practice it. Start today with one big thought, one bold action. Because the magic doesn't happen in words, it happens when you use them to transform your life. Thank you for joining me on this journey. Keep thinking big, keep acting big, and keep becoming the person you were meant to be.